There's clearly a big link between traffic and parking. We all know that the statistic of 30% of traffic caused by people searching, is caused by people searching for parking. So over at INRIX, overall what we're trying to do is improve urban mobility and the driving experience. And we can do this by creating solutions for our customers, whether they're drivers or parking managers on college campuses. Parking is definitely one of the bigger mobility challenges, specifically on college campuses where space for parking is a premium and congestion can be high. Throw in a weekday football game or a graduation ceremony and that situation becomes even more challenging than usual. INRIX recently acquired ParkMe, who had already created some great solutions to manage parking and some awesome consumer products, and now we are hyper-focused on working with cities, universities, automakers, and the parking industry at large to create the ultimate parking experience for drivers. I'm excited to introduce our presenter today, Nathan Donnell, who's INRIX's Director of Business Development for INRIX's Parking Division. Nathan has over 12 years of experience in the parking industry working with municipalities, universities, and private operators to enhance their parking programs. Before accepting his position at INRIX, Nathan was SVP of Sales at Park Mobile, where he continued to strengthen relationships with universities and cities in the United States and Canada. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Nathan so he can talk to you about how you can use big data to improve traffic and parking on campus.
Thank you very much, Mark, for the introduction, and thank you all for joining the webinar today, and so we can actually talk about the type of information, the type of services that we provide in the university market. As Mark said, I've been in the parking industry for over 12 years now, and I've worked with multiple universities throughout the United States and Canada, and it seems to be that there's always the same problem in all these universities, and that same problem is that the university's drive is to get more students to come to campus. But in the meantime, you are either landlocked or where you actually build buildings is taking from the parking lots and parking locations. So the parking departments on all these campuses struggle, and their biggest challenge is, okay, how do we continue to fit more students on campus with more vehicles, but with less spaces? So that's why INRIX/ParkMe is here to help and to kind of show you what we've done. So on this slide here, you can see some of the cities and universities that we work with, as well as the auto manufacturers. INRIX, interestingly enough, Mark had mentioned that INRIX is actually a spinoff from Microsoft. So just over 10 years ago, if you wanted to figure out what was going on with traffic, you watched your TV and you saw a traffic report from a helicopter. Today, that is all but non-existent. Like, most of the helicopters are actually out of the air doing those traffic reports. Majority of the traffic reports that you see on TV are actually information and data that is collected by INRIX and then pushed out to the public. I thought that was extremely interesting to see that even up to 10 years, that's how drastic this change has been. It's exciting. It's exciting news to sit there and see that we can do this with the data and we can actually progress in such a way that we have. INRIX works with over 500 companies throughout the world to gather data, including cities, transportation departments, universities, to gather data to be able to push it out to the public so they can actually make their lives easier, whether it's through transportation or through parking. We talked about the parking problem on campus. Mark had mentioned something about the 30% of traffic is people looking for parking. That is a case-by-case scenario, but we do know that when students, faculty, staff, visitors come onto a campus and they need to park, whether it's to register, whether it's to visit, whether it's to attend an event, there is sometimes a challenge. Most of the time there's a challenge in finding parking. And so people are driving around or causing traffic. There's safety issues because students are walking throughout campus. It all becomes one of those things that how do we figure out how to resolve this problem? Wasting time. So when a student has a permit that is next to the science building in a parking lot, and they go to that parking lot and that parking lot is completely full, then they have to try to figure out where they're going to park the next parking lot closest, or if there is availability, or they double park, or they park in a lot that actually is for faculty only, and so it causes, there's tickets, there's all these different things that I've seen it. I've actually witnessed students do these things as well as visitors. Throw in a game or an event, a major event on a university, and you've eliminated or multiplied that problem sometimes by astronomical numbers. Some of the universities, especially in the Southeast and the Southwest, have massive football games every Saturday, and there is a major challenge at trying to find 120,000 plus people into a university and put them in parking spaces throughout the university, and not only that, but just ease on the congestion of the traffic. So the impact of that is, again, is expensive in building, to manage. You talk about how you can, it's expensive to design and build a garage or maintain new parking facilities, which more times than not, you actually don't have the space to create one of those or to build one of those, so you have to use the space that you have. There's limited space on campus. And then, of course, parking utilization. Most campuses that I've worked with in the past actually oversell their parking lots and with permit solutions and or visitor parking by 10 to 20%, with the hopes that students aren't parking there Monday through Friday all day, that there's staggered class schedules, and those things are happening. Sometimes that works, and I've seen a lot of universities manage that quite well. But if we can actually get information into their hands, not just the students or the parkers, but actually the parking department, to be able to actually see these dashboards and see this information coming in real time, then you're able to make decisions in a better situation. Our smart parking solution actually empowers drivers to show real-time parking intelligence. So you can see on this screen, you have a blank map. And let's just say that that is a university map in Google. That map can be turned into the one on the right, where we actually gather data from the universities, whether that's off-street parking lots, permit lots, visitor lots, short-term parking structures, all these different things, as well as some on-street parking. We can actually push that into different forms of communication, and we'll talk about the different forms of communication here in the next couple of slides. But this is the goal. The goal is to actually get this information out to the public so they can actually make educated decisions before they ever even get into their car, or right when they're getting into their car, and even in some certain cases as they're driving onto campus. So real-time parking intelligence can come from many different things, but the motto that INRIX/ParkMe has kind of picked up over the last year or so is find, compare, and pay. And it's pretty simple. We all want to find parking, whether that's the destination to going into campus or going to an event. We want to be able to know exactly where we're going to park instead of circling around, driving around, wasting time, being late for class or late to an event, whether that's an alumni event or a football game or a basketball game of some sort. So if we can actually get that information out to the consumer, then they can make educated decisions about where they're going. At the same time, not only can you find that, and you want to find that information, but you also want to be able to compare prices. And you want to be able to see if the lots or locations that you are getting ready to drive to actually have available parking, and or if there's actually parking available for, say, a visitor. If it's a permit-only lot, then how does that visitor know that that is a permit-only lot until they get on campus and actually see a sign? And at that point in time, now they have to try to circle back around and go to a different lot or find a different lot. And so we're able to actually, through our services and through what we do, we want to be able to show that information over to the consumer. And last but not least, we want to be able to pay. So if it's a permit, of course, there's permit sales that is actually built into what the universities are currently doing. But there's also visitor parking. So if you want to park in a parking lot and pay with your cell phone through a mobile payment provider, or pay at a multi-space meter lot, or pay at a single space meter, these are all different ways that you can do things, but we want to be able to actually do this thing all in like an all-encompassing solution. So if you can find, compare, and pay within the same entity of what you're doing, then again, you've actually exceeded your goal in that. Talking about how we actually get people to see this information, INRIX and ParkMe actually work with a number of different companies in the parking and transportation industry to be able to get this information out there. One of the ways that we do is through our ParkMe app. Millions of people have actually downloaded the ParkMe app and gone to the website to help find parking, look at occupancy levels in parking, as well as prepay for parking through a reservation system. The next one that is really starting to actually gain some traction on there is car navigation systems or connected vehicles. There are, right now, almost 20 million vehicles being sold on an annual basis in North America. And those 20 million vehicles that are being sold are connected in some way, shape, or form, whether that's through Bluetooth technology, whether that's a navigation system, whether there's Wi-Fi built into the vehicle, whether there's some sort of a manual or an actual update that these auto manufacturers can do on their own via some sort of a cellular connectivity. They are connected, and we have the ability, because of the relationships we have with car manufacturers, is that we have actually the ability to push real-time parking data into the head units of those vehicles. By the year 2020, there's expected to be 250 connected vehicles on the road. That is a major source of information that not only are we gathering, but we're able to actually push out to the parker or the driver. The next one is a pretty exciting integration that we have recently just begun, is with Waze. Waze has 70 million users throughout the United States. Those 70 million people now have the ability to punch in a destination. So let's just say I'm going to a game on campus and I punch in the stadium. Well, we know we don't actually park at or in the stadium. We park around the stadium. So what we have done with Waze is that we've actually, the next step in Waze is that they've actually created a section. As soon as you put your destination in there, the next thing it says is, where would you like to park? And it actually gives you options on where to park around that arena, stadium, destination. And that information actually came from INRIX/ParkMe. It's a pretty exciting opportunity to be able to work with such a company like Waze, Microsoft, and Bing to be able to push that parking data out there. And last but not least, we actually offer the ability to create custom apps and websites for the universities. So I do know that there's a lot of universities that actually either create their own parking or their own app, informational app, whether that's through a contractor or in-house, but we actually have the ability through APIs to push this real-time parking occupancy data and information into existing apps that are there. Because I don't know about you, but on my phone currently right now, I have over 30 different parking apps downloaded. One reason, I'm in the industry, so I like to see exactly what people are doing. Another reason is I actually use those apps on a daily basis. In my travel, when I go visit places, those apps, it's information that I actually have access to, and it's pretty cool information. It's at your fingertips. But I don't want to have to continue to download separate apps every single time I do things. So why not have one app that can actually have all this information in there, whether that's campus information, buildings, where buildings are at, the different services that are on campus, and then you throw parking in the mix. Right now, there's a lot of apps out there, university apps out there that show where parking is, but it doesn't show availability. It doesn't show more information other than like maybe a permit lot or a lot name, but we'd like to actually expand on that. And that's the goal. So our smart parking ecosystem actually creates the ability to take all this data from all these different points. We talk about events, cities and universities, operators. We have integrations with all the major meter manufacturers and parks equipment, as well as mobile payments. So pay-by-cell vendors. All those information. So we have all kinds of different data that is coming in. We have transactional data. We have just static data that's coming in. We take all that data, we ingest it into our database, and then we're able to actually push that information out via a numerous number of applications that we just talked about on the screen before. That's the goal, is to actually push this information out to as many people as possible through as many directions as possible, because that's where you're actually hitting the most amount of people. Talked about the future of parking and being connected in those 250 million cars by the year 2020. This is actually a screenshot of a vehicle that we work with that actually shows different types of parking, where you can see here, you actually have on-street parking spaces and you have different colors on there. You actually have parking lot locations that are next to it. The driver actually has the ability to see this in real time, click on a certain location, and it will actually give them directions to those locations. Again, it makes life easier. I own a vehicle that actually has a navigation system in it, and it actually has parking locations on there, and I have used it a number of times in my own city when I actually travel down to the downtown area, because first and foremost, I want to know if there's available parking. Second of all, I want to know what the price is. Third of all, I want to get there the quickest as I possibly can, and this information allows me to access that, so I can actually make that educated decision before I ever get down there. Cool thing about it is, in real-time situations, this information can actually change. So if I'm driving down to a university or driving to an event within a university and a lot gets full, that information is uploaded and pushed out to all these different forms of communication, and I can then divert and go to another lot that may not be full. We not only push data out to vehicles, but we actually collect millions of data points through vehicles in different ways. I know Mark talked about roadway analytics and weather and all these different things that INRIX does, but we actually take these connected vehicles and we use information such as wiper blade information, such as engine diagnostics, LiDAR, actual LiDAR detectors, which are the ones that when you're backing up, you can actually hear your car beeping. Those data points we actually use for certain things. We have the ability to take information from these vehicles when talking about road conditions. So if someone actually hits their brakes and their anti-lock brake system is engaged, that information is sent up to our database, and we can actually push that information out to other drivers, and they can actually see that there may be black ice on the road ahead. Again, this is all information that we gather from our partners in the transportation as well as the parking industry. And again, what this does is it actually encourages people to actually use this information so they can then make better decisions when driving on campus, when going those different routes. Another thing that we're talking about, so I've talked a lot about the consumer and what the consumer sees and how to make the destination easier to get to within this service, but there is a back-end solution of this that we offer our clients, being the universities, municipalities, operators, different things. But ultimately, we give you access to have a dashboard so you can actually do some parking analytics and management. So you can actually see what's going on. In these next couple of screens, you'll actually see some screenshots from our dashboard that you have full access to. You have the ability to do prepaid parking reservations. And that is not just with INRIX/ParkMe, that is actually with maybe you have an existing prepaid or a reservation vendor that you currently work with. We work with, if not all, the majority of the parking reservation vendors in the industry. Another thing that you can do is through measurement. So you can actually see real-time occupancy heat maps. So you can actually direct your enforcement officers to go to certain lots to make sure that their enforcement is they're hitting the right enforcement zones. You actually can see this information in real time, so you can either make decisions on the fly, whether that's to raise pricing, lower pricing for events, or you can shut parking lots off if they're full or whatever the case may be. You actually have this information at your fingertips. And of course, the awareness. The awareness part of it is major because you want to be aware of what's going on. I'm not saying for a second that universities don't know what's going on with their campus. I have a very, very strong feeling that majority, if not all, universities have a very, very good sense of what's going on campus. But if there's a way for us to make it even better, then that's our goal. Because our goal is to make not only your lives easier, but the parkers' lives easier. So this happens to be a screenshot of one of the dashboards that we offer, and you can see here that it actually shows parking availability within your campus that you can see on which lots, which garages, whether they're permit lots, whether they're paid parking lots. There's all kinds of different things that you can see on there. You can actually see on-street parking data. So there are certain universities or some universities that I know of that actually have short-term on-street parking, whether that's with a multi-space meter or with a single-space meter. We actually give you access to see what's going on with that through transactional data, as well as LPR data if the university that you're at actually uses LPR data for enforcement and citations. So with this dashboard, you can actually do things like you can schedule blackout dates. So let's just say, for example, there is an event that is happening at 7 o'clock at night, and you want to close that lot off for a certain group of people to have access to that lot only. You can do that. You don't need to call us. You actually have access to the dashboard yourself, where you can actually shut that lot off. So it will actually say if a public is looking at it, whether it's through an app, through a website, through their connected vehicle, whatever the case may be, they're going to be able to see at that point in time during the day, there's a parking restriction. You're not able to park in that. And then it gives that person or that event access to that lot only. You can send out alert and notifications. So you can actually say there's construction on Main Street, and please use Central Avenue. Those are all different things that you actually have the ability to push out to the customer. You can support the customer. So customers actually can contact you through a help desk of some sort, and you can actually answer on the fly if a customer has a question. Some more analytics that we see here. So on the thing, you have on the left, you have a dashboard, and these are different occupancy levels. You can see occupancy. You can actually see for prepaid reservations, you can actually see revenues. So you can see exactly how much is coming in. So you can actually plan ahead. So if you have a lot that you have sent out 100 prepaid reservations, essentially spots that you've reserved for that, and you've only sold 20, and there's 5 hours before the event, you at that point in time can adjust parking rates, or you can add more or take away those reservations on the fly. You can actually see occupancy data at that same exact lot. So not only are you seeing revenue, but you can see occupancy as well. And then you can see on the next one, it says it's digitized parking inventory. So you can actually see on there at any given time how many vehicles are actually in the lot, how many vehicles are paid, how many vehicles, at what point in time they're in there. The next one over is actually you have the ability to, for example, if you want to shut a lot down because there's a construction. So if the lot is going away, then you actually can go in there and turn that lot off. Or if by some amazing chance you actually gain a lot, you have the ability to create that lot through GPS and zone it. You can even put in entry points, exit points, because all that information is then pushed out to the consumer. And then, of course, last, you have the managing your details. So you can actually change rates. You can change occupancy information. You can reset occupancy information because, as we all know, in a parking garage that has parks equipment, there are times that you actually have to do manual counts and reset that data and start over again. And you have the ability to do that when you actually go out there and do your inventory. So the whole goal, again, is to reduce traffic caused by parkers, because we do know that people that are parking are driving around looking for parking. You can actually optimize your pricing, so you can actually take this data that we're pushing out to you, or you have access to actually either raise rates, lower rates, raise hours of operations, take away hours of operation. There's so many things that you can do that you actually have access to be able to have this information. And clearly information is key to be able to make educated decisions. And then you can also visualize trends. So if you can see on Thursday at 2 o'clock, there is a lot next to a department that is always almost empty or only 50% full, you can actually start to use that information to maybe sell more permits in that lot for other locations at a discounted price or even at a premium, depending on what those trends are. And then, of course, enforcement optimization. So with this real-time occupancy, your enforcement officers actually have the ability not just to go ahead and do a scheduled route on certain things. They can go to each lot or a lot that may have 100% occupancy that they want to be able to kind of turn over to make sure that people are actually doing or looking lost for words here, but actually applying to that policy that's in place. So adhering to the policy that's in place and doing the right thing, whether that's paying, whether that's staying under the 2-hour time limit or whatever that time limit may be. You have the ability to actually push that information out to the enforcement officers so they can make, again, better decisions on things. So game day dilemmas. Now, not every university has a major dilemma with major football, such as the SEC schools do down in the Southeast. So when everybody talks about SEC schools and being a pretty fantastic situation, I've been to a couple of SEC football games. It is pretty amazing. And I really, on a parking aspect of it, when I go to those games, the first thing I do is I start to actually look at how the parking operations works with each university that I've ever gone to. It's a pretty cool concept, what they're doing. And they're doing the best they possibly can with the data that they have at hand, but we actually have the ability to push that information out. And I'll show you at the end of this slideshow through a current university client that we have in a case study where we've actually been able to optimize efficiency, where they can actually get cars in and cars out for these game days. But we know with any type of game day or any type of event that's on campus, whether that's in the summer, there are summer events that happen, those different camps that maybe kids have. I know when my kids were smaller that I used to take them to university camps every summer, and finding parking, finding locations was always a challenge for me because I never went to the campus before this. And so now I have to go to that campus and I have to try to figure out where everything's at. So if I can actually get that information out there or have on my fingertips, well, then I'd make better decision moving forward with that. Again, navigating directly to the stadium. There are certain stadiums or certain universities that have only one way in, one way out, or a couple ways in, a couple ways out. So we have the ability to actually show them or direct them in certain ways to be able to get to the lots that they've actually either paid for or the lots they want to go to. And of course, cash-only parking wastes time. There's so many things that you can talk about with cash-only parking. Yeah, when I pull up and I actually give somebody $10 and I only have a $20 bill, then I have to wait for change. There's backup because there's 15 other cars that are waiting to pay. There is an issue with leakage, as we all know. We'd like to say that everybody that we hire is completely honest and nobody would ever do anything like that, but I've been in the industry for long enough to know that that's not always the case. So if we can somehow take that out of the equation, well, then now you've lessened that and you don't have to worry about that anymore. Prepaid parking reservations. Again, I talked about the fact that we offer a prepaid reservation service within our company. This actually has to be a screenshot of what we do. So if you know you're going to an event and you can see on that event there are prepaid reservations, you can go to the parking website or you can go to the university's website. You can actually click on a prepaid lot and actually pay at that point in time. You would get either an email verification or something on your phone that you can actually take to that lot and have them scan it with whatever enforcement piece you're using. So that's a handheld device, a smartphone, whether that's through T2, New Park. There's all kinds of different ones out there, different enforcement vendors that we work with. But those are all those. We have integrations with majority of them. If not, we can actually build an integration quite easily. But that information then is then pushed into their back office. So when the parker actually gets to the parking lot, they can scan that, and then that parking is essentially fulfilled. So let's just say, for an example, I pay for parking and prepay for parking, and I get this receipt that has that barcode on there, that QR code on there. And I think to myself, I'm going to get one over on this university. I'm going to send these out to all my buddies that are driving, and I'm going to say, here you go. Check this out. Put this in on this parking lot, and you'll get free parking. I already paid for it. Or you can pay me a nominal fee and to kind of work with that, and you can go and get this parking. Well, the first one that actually shows up that parking lot is going to get access to that parking reservation. Everybody else will actually not be able to do that, and they'll be pushed away. So don't feel like that can happen, because our system actually has the ability to do that. So when you talk about prepaid parking reservations, you, as the university, have full access to the number of reservations that you want to sell per lot. You can set prices. You can set the hours that those reservations are available. We, on our end, we promote that to millions of people through our ParkMe customers, through our connected vehicles, through all the other forms of communication that we have within our company. And then, of course, we talked about drivers that you can reserve online, and then you can redeem and park once you get there. You have the ability to charge premium prices with this. So if there is a lot right next to the stadium, more times than not, you're going to charge a much higher price if there was a lot that was actually 4 blocks away. All this information can be downloaded into the INRIX back office and changed on the fly. Real-time heat maps. So kind of getting away from the reservations, these are some of the things. This is actually a screenshot of a map that is actually in our ParkMe app and website. So you can not only see that there are locations, garages, lots in this map, but there's actually on-street. So I'm going to talk a little bit about on-street because this might be a little bit, you might want to question this, but ultimately you see a red line on throughout the whole entire street. So how we do that is we don't actually do per space occupancy. We do typically block face occupancy, because let's just say a block has 10 spaces and there are 8 transactions going on and we have that data, and we assume that there are actually, it's 80% occupied and there's only 20% availability, means 2 space availability, then we may show that as being red. Those percentages can be actually changed per university and per location. It's completely up to you, but that's what that is. So it's not an actual per space. We actually have the ability to do per space locations, but this has to be per block face. And then again, on the locations, you can see here that there's 70, there's percentages, not actually space availability. Again, we do have the ability to show space availability in a parks location or a garage that has parking equipment. So let's just say that garage has 500 parking spaces in it, and there are 450 cars. Then we can show that there are 50 cars available, or we can show a percentage. It's completely up to you on how you want to tailor this information to be able to push out to the consumer. This happens to be something that we actually worked on earlier this year, and you can see here this is actually a screenshot of a location or a client that we worked with, and this is kind of a time lapse. You can see here that there are not only predictions, but we're actually using it. This is ungated, unpaid mall parking. So we actually have the ability through our analytics and through the algorithms that we've created to show predictive parking availability at this mall. And so you can see here at 9:54 in the morning, there are a couple lots that are yellow that are more than 50% full, and a couple of lots that are green. And so as a parker, if I know that coming in, I may want to go directly to the green ones, or I'll go to the yellow ones and maybe park farther out, or spend a few extra minutes looking for parking. It's completely their decision, but we want them to be aware that this is actually available. And so this is actually something that is actually in production right now, today, and it's been a very successful program. So we talked about all the different parking information being accessible in many ways. Those are the 4 ways with the ParkMe app, all the navigation systems with the OEMs that we work with. OEMs are the car manufacturers, the API integrations that we have with all the major communication and transportation, such as Waze, Microsoft, Bing. I know internally there's a lot of other conversations that we have with some other major ones. And then, of course, the custom apps and websites. So don't forget that we have the ability to actually push this information, this occupancy information, into an existing university app, or we can actually create a university app for you. We have the ability to actually create a white label app that has this data in there. So we talked about custom parking apps. This is one of the things that we do. This is actually a custom parking app that we can actually create for you, or again, we can use the existing app you currently have now, and all this information will be embedded into that app. These are some of the screenshots that actually will show up in the apps. You can see here that you have a white label app, so it can be your university, it can be your university colors, it can have your logo on there. that is actually that information put in there. Then you can see, again, occupancy, data. You can see different things within the app itself. And then, of course, you can use the mobile payment integrations that we have. So we actually integrate currently with Park Mobile, Pay by Phone, and ParkX are the 3 mobile payment providers that we have a current integration that we're working with right now in other locations. We can work with other ones such as Passport, Mobile Now. There's a number of them out there. Honk Mobile. There's all kinds of them out there. So it's a very easy API for us to be able to do that. So you can actually not only park in these locations, but you can actually make a payment in these locations. And then, last but not least, you have the ability to kind of find your car. So you can actually click on Find My Car, and it will actually walk you back. If you have your GPS turned on, we have the ability to do that as well. So I talked about the fact that we're going to do a case study with the university that we work with. Texas A&M was our first university we worked with on parking availability and reservations. So the University of Texas A&M actually has if you've ever been there, if you've ever heard of it, there's only a couple of main ways in and out. It's a massive university. It has a lot of property, but there's a challenge when it comes to getting people, 120,000 people, into Kyle Field on game day. So we've actually been able to actually help with this. So with our prepaid reservations, if you know that you're going to a Texas A&M game, you can go on to the website and actually click on which lot you have or you want to park in, depending on price and availability. Prepay for your parking, drive to the game. We actually have the ability to give them directions and the easiest way to actually get to that particular lot and location. And then once they get there, the Texas A&M staff actually scan that with their smartphone device, their T2 Flex, because we have an integration with T2 Flex, to redeem that particular parking integration or that parking reservation. We also show availability in real time, so you can actually pull up the Texas Aggieland app, and it will show you parking availability within that app. We did not build that app. That is their app that they actually contracted out with a mobile app provider, but we were able to actually push that information over there. So the students, faculty, staff, and visitors did not have to download another app. Because again, if you have to download their app or take that other step, then there may be, that's going to cause a little bit of, in our way, in our thoughts, is a little bit of a hurdle that you have to come over. So if we can actually accomplish that without having to do that, then we've saved somebody time and made it easier. So all in all, the benefit of smart parking is, of course, to save money as a consumer. So if I want to know if there's a cheaper place to park, maybe I have to walk a couple blocks more. That's a decision that I want to make. Reducing traffic as a university. So for safety reasons, when there's kids walking around the university and there's students driving, visitors driving, not knowing where they're going, uninformed people that are making U-turns because that lot's full or because they just missed their visitor parking lots. It's a safety issue, and of course, our goal is to reduce that. And then, of course, manage your parking operations smarter and more efficient. Again, with our back office solution and our dashboard, our hope is to make sure that you are actually managing things smarter. And then, of course, building goodwill, because I've been in parking departments in universities that have fielded customer complaints, and there seems to be, they complain about anything and everything. I didn't get a space close enough. Do you know who I am? I am the so-and-so's daughter. I'm the so-and-so's son. There's all these complaints that they get. So if we can make those people's lives easier, then hopefully that's one less thing for them to complain about. Thank you very much for your time. I know this was a lot of information to ingest, and we're going to open it up. I'm actually going to pass it off to Mark now as the moderator, and we're going to open it up for questions. Feel free to ask as many questions as you want, any question that you want, and I will do my best to answer it. If I don't know the answer to your question, I will find out the answer for you and make sure that I get back to you. Mark?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you, everybody. Like Nathan said, we're now going to open up the floor for questions. We actually had a few questions come through the chat box that I'm going to kind of just call out for everybody. The first one was, can you use LPR data for occupancy?
So yes, actually LPR data is one of the best uses of occupancy because it's typically more real time. So LPR, if you're using mobile LPR vehicles and driving lots to make sure that those vehicles that are parked in those lots have valid permits or valid parking transactions through paid parking transactions, we ingest that data and actually push that out to the consumers. So to answer your question, absolutely, LPR data is a great tool and a great data set to use to be able to kind of push that information out to the consumer.
Alrighty. The next question we had is, I may have missed it, but how is the parking occupancy actually collected?
So it's collected in a number of different ways. So we can collect through permit sales that you currently have, so data that you already have. We collect it through transaction data. So if you are using a smart meter, like an IPS meter that has credit card capability, you're connected. Any type of cell phone or Wi-Fi connection, we consider that being quote unquote a smart meter, or a multi-space meter that has the same exact connectivity. We ingest that data and then put it into the algorithms that we've created to be able to push out occupancy data, whether it's in a predictive sense or a real-time sense.
Okay. The next question we had is, how would you integrate our parking information into an existing app?
So we actually have open APIs that we have created and built that we can take this data throughout the university and throughout those lots and actually push it into the existing app. So for example, we did that with the Texas A&M AggieLand app, and we're actually working with a couple of the universities and a couple of app developers in the industry to be able to do the same thing. So like Arizona State University uses a company called Campus Bird. Campus Bird actually has, they already have parking and occupancy data built into their app in their garages. Well, Arizona State University has 13 garages on campus. They have 150 surface lots, and those are a mixed-use permit lot and paid parking lot for visitors or non-permit providers. Campus Bird, the mobile provider that actually built the app for the university, does not have the ability to actually access that data, ingest that data, and push it out, but we do. So Campus Bird is actually working with us right now to create that API where we can actually push that information out to the Arizona State University app to show parking availability in these ungated lots.
All right. Another question that just came in was, how do you store the different data feeds?
So the data feeds we store, it's all anonymous data. So when you, as a university, when you are collecting data for permits, you're collecting customer information, you're collecting license plate information, you're collecting credit card information in some instances. That's not the data that we use. We use, especially like in a permit, we just use the number of permits that are sold in a particular lot or in a particular location. With LPR, we use the number of what we call pings in a lot. So if there is 200 spaces in a lot and that LPR vehicle is driving around and they, at the end of their drive through the lot, they send us a file that has 150 pings in it. They don't send us any license plate information. It's just basically pings. And we are able to take that and say, okay, well, there's 50 spaces available in this lot, and then we can actually push that out to the consumer. All that information that we use, again, is all anonymous information. So transaction information, when we use transaction data, we're not collecting credit card information. That is a major PCI no-no, and we don't even want to touch it. All we want to know is when the transaction started and when it stopped and where that transaction was paid for, or what lot number or quote-unquote zone number, depending on how you actually write that within your university.
Great. Another question came in. This is kind of a two-parter. First part was, you know, do you have the methodology for real-time occupancy prediction? And then they also wanted to know, you know, in the methodology, do we consider build environment factors or socioeconomic factors? For example, in a downtown area, to predict occupancy, would we consider the number of employees or number of buildings in that area? So, you know, methodology of how we predict occupancy, and then, you know, I guess just what factors do we take into consideration?
Absolutely. So our engineers, men and women that are much smarter than me, have created algorithms and data sets to be able to put this predictive occupancy out into all the different areas that we push it out to. From my understanding, we do not push out information through methodologies or you know, the social economic locations, such as buildings that may have 2,000 employees in a building, because those buildings or those employees may get to work in a number of different ways, whether it's mass transit, whether it's walking, whether it's biking, or driving, or carpooling. There's so many different things that we don't have access to that information. So we don't use that information for parking availability. We use other things such as, we talked about transaction data, LPR data, static data. We actually have in the past have gone out and done studies or counted cars in certain lots and locations during certain times of the day, taken that information, ingested that into our data set, and then been able to push that out to the consumer.
Great, thanks. Another question just came in here, and they wanted to know, have you worked with a system that collects parking occupancy data with in-pavement detectors that record the presence of parked cars? So I'm guessing like sensors and kind of induction loops.
Absolutely. Yes, we have. And there are a number of companies out there that we actually work with that may have sensors that they provide and they install, or even overhead camera sensors or you know, that type of data that we actually ingest that and can push that out through all the different avenues. Those are great because that shows you real-time occupancy. It's not necessary to have that. We know that sensors are expensive. The battery lives may or may not, depending on the type of environment that you're putting those sensors in. They may last a number of years in some areas, but in a cold weather environment that has snow and if a road's getting ripped up, then all of a sudden that sensor is no good because you've ripped up the sensor as well. There's all kinds of different ways to look at that. But yes, to answer your question, we actually have the ability to ingest that sensor data and push it out to the consumers.
Great, thanks, Nathan. You know, last question here. I think you touched on it, but someone wanted to know if you can use other reservation providers instead of INRIX or ParkMe reservations.
Absolutely can. We can use multiple reservation providers, as a matter of fact. So if you are using Spot Hero, ParkWiz, Parking Panda, Park Mobile, you know, there's a number of them out there. We have integrations with every single one of them that you can continue to use those service providers. You do not have to switch over to the INRIX reservation. As a matter of fact, they are really good at doing reservations. That's their bread and butter. That's what they do. We do other things. I'm not saying we're not good at reservations, but that's not the main thing that we do. So if you don't want to add reservations through our services, you don't have to. It's, if you think of it as an a la carte, you can kind of choose or not choose to be able to do that. We are working internally right now and having discussions with these multiple reservations providers at looking at something where, if you think of it as a pool, and let's just say that there's a pool of 100 prepaid reservations in a lot at any given time. Instead of actually handing them out and saying, okay, company A, you're going to get 10, and company B, you're going to get 20, and company C, you're going to get 30, up to that 100, what they do is they say, here's 100. You guys can do whatever you want to do to get those reservations captured through your site or through your system. But once that 100 is gone, it's gone. So company A they may have had access before of 10, but they may now sell 70. And company B may have access to 20, and they only sold 5 because they didn't do a good job of marketing the product. In our minds, competition creates adoption. And if we can actually do that into one location and have one single platform for that, and be that platform for our customers via the university, then again, we've made your life easier at managing that.
Great. Let's see, it doesn't look like there's any other questions that have come through. So, any other questions, just submit through the chat. And if not,
hand it over to Allie.
Yeah, I think yeah, let's hand it back over to Allie. Looks like there's no more questions.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for joining our webinar today. A very special thanks to Nathan for his time and expertise in regards to parking and traffic for universities and cities alike. As a reminder, this webinar has been recorded, and you will be emailed a link to the recording within 24 hours. It usually comes exactly 24 hours from the end of the webinar, so tomorrow, sometime midday. If you have any more questions in the meantime, feel free to visit our website. We've got a bunch of great content there around our parking solutions. You can also email Nathan directly. So if you want to touch base, just get in touch with us. That concludes our webinar for today. Thank you all for your time, and have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.